On June 16th, the Austrian national team is going to walk into a stadium in San Francisco, stare down an opponent, and begin executing a tactical system that is essentially the equivalent of running wind sprints inside a closed sauna for 90 straight minutes.
Yeah, it's brutal. Just entirely unforgiving.
Right. It is a grueling, suffocating, relentlessly painful style of football. But for a country that has been trapped in a 28-year World Cup drought, they aren't just hoping this painful system works. They are betting their entire national identity on it. It is Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. We are just 6 days away from that moment. So, okay, let's unpack this.
It is honestly the ultimate high-stakes gamble.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you are taking a team that has not been on the global stage since 1998, handing them one of the most physically demanding tactical blueprints in the history of the sport, and, well, dropping them right into the blistering heat of a North American summer.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. Because whether you're a die-hard tactician trying to finalize your group stage betting slips, or, you just want to sound like the smartest person at the sports bar next week, we are going to give you the ultimate edge.
Absolutely.
We've compiled a massive stack of intelligence on Austria's Group J campaign. We have tactical profiles from the Guardian and Total Football Analysis, historical dossiers from UEFA and FIFA, the latest shifts in the global betting markets, and we're even pulling from real-time, highly anxious fan reactions from Reddit.
It's such a fascinating collection of sources, too, because you have the cold, hard tactical data from analysts colliding right into the emotional desperation of a fan base. You have a nation trying to reconcile an incredibly glorious past with a very turbulent present.
Which is exactly where we need to start. Because if you just look at the last couple of decades, you might think of Austria as like a plucky underdog, just happy to be invited to the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
But reading through the UEFA historical data, that couldn't be further from the truth. I mean, they used to own this sport.
Yeah, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to understand that in the early to mid-20th century, Austria was footballing royalty. They weren't a Cinderella story. They were the gold standard.
Right.
They finished fourth at the 1934 World Cup in Italy. And then 20 years later, they achieved their best ever result at the 1954 World Cup in Switzerland, finishing third.
I was actually looking at the match logs from that 1954 tournament, and there is a quarterfinal match against Switzerland that honestly looks like a typo.
Oh, the 7-5 victory, yeah.
7-5 in a World Cup quarterfinal.
To this day, in 2026, it remains the highest scoring match in World Cup history. The sources often refer to it by its German name, the Hitzeschlacht von Lausanne, which translates to the Heat Battle of Lausanne.
The Heat Battle. That feels incredibly relevant right now.
Exactly. It was played in sweltering 104-degree heat. I mean, players were collapsing, the goalkeeper suffered heat stroke, but they just kept attacking. However, the real mythos of Austrian football, the ghost that truly haunts the modern team, comes from the decade prior, the 1930s.
The Wonder Team. I mean, just calling your national squad the Wonder Team sets an impossibly high bar for anyone who puts on the jersey after you.
It really does. But what's fascinating here is that the Wonder Team didn't just win matches. They revolutionized the intellect of the sport. They were managed by Hugo Meisel and led on the pitch by Matthias Sindelar, a player nicknamed the Paperman.
The Paperman.
Because of his build, right?
Right, because of his incredibly slight, almost fragile build. But he possessed this supernatural agility and vision. Instead of relying on brute force, which was basically the default at the time, they pioneered a fluid, short-passing, highly intellectual attacking style.
It was like watching chess on grass, from what the historical sources describe.
Exactly. Our sources note they were the first continental European team to ever defeat Scotland, who were considered completely untouchable back then.
But then, the lights just go out. You fast forward to the modern era, and the contrast is absolutely jarring. Their last appearance at a World Cup was 1998 in France. They haven't made it out of a group stage since 1982.
It's a massive gap. It is. It's like looking at a family that used to own a massive, glamorous, sprawling estate. That's the Wonder Team era. But then they lost the estate, struggled in obscurity for an entire generation, and now they're finally moving back into a high-rise in the exact same wealthy neighborhood.
That's a great way to put it.
So how does a modern player even carry that kind of historical baggage? I mean, are they burdened by the ghosts of 1954, or are they fueled by them?
Well, the cultural sources in our stack point to a very deliberate psychological severing from that past. For decades, the media and the fans were just burdened by the Wunder Team label. Every new generation of players was heavily scrutinized for not being the next miracle.
Right, because you can't live up to a miracle.
You can't. But look at the modern branding. Today, they are known simply as Das Team, so the team, or Unser Burschen, which means our boys.
That feels so much more blue collar. It's just grounded.
Exactly the point. It is a psychological shift from expecting magic to valuing collective, grinding hard work. They even changed their visual identity to cement this new era. Up until 2004, their primary kit colors were white shirts and black shorts.
Wait, isn't that Germany's traditional kit?
Yes, because they were the traditional colors of the Teutonic Order. But in 2004, the legendary Austrian striker and then manager Hans Krenkel demanded a change. He essentially flipped their primary kit to red shirts and white shorts to match the Austrian flag and, to visually distinguish themselves from their giant neighbors, Germany.
Because you don't want to just be Germany's little brother on the pitch.
Exactly. The modern emblem reflects this exact ethos too. It's a white shield symbolizing fair play, a black eagle clutching a soccer ball, and the national flag in the center. They basically stopped waiting for a miracle and decided to build a machine instead.
And if you're going to build a machine, you hire an engineer. Which brings us to the man prowling the touchline for Austria right now, Ralf Rangnick.
Yes, the mastermind.
For the listener who maybe doesn't religiously follow European club football, Rangnick is essentially the godfather of modern German tactical theory. He built the systems that elevated clubs like RB Leipzig and Schalke. He had a brief, highly scrutinized stint at Manchester United. But his true legacy is a philosophy called gegenpressing.
Counterpressing, yeah. It is a philosophy that has completely consumed modern football, and Rangnick is one of his chief architects. And looking at the qualifying data for this 2026 World Cup, his implementation of this system with the Austrian national team has been terrifyingly effective.
The numbers are insane.
They really are. They topped UEFA qualifying Group H with 6 wins, 1 draw, and just 1 single loss. They scored 22 goals and conceded only 4. They even had a 10-0 demolition of San Marino.
Okay, I have to jump in here. Because beating San Marino 10 is one thing, right? They are a tiny nation. But to dominate a qualifying group, you need a system that breaks down elite professionals. I want to understand the how here. We throw the word gegenpressing around a lot. Break it down for me. If I am an opposing midfielder and I just intercepted an Austrian pass, what happens to me in the next 3 seconds?
Okay, so in a traditional football setup, when your team loses the ball, the immediate reaction is to retreat. You drop back, get into a defensive shape, and build a wall between the ball and your goal.
Right, you protect the house.
Exactly. Gegenpressing dictates the exact opposite. The moment you intercept that ball, the Austrian players do not retreat. Instead, the 3 or 4 players closest to you instantly sprint at you at full speed. They swarm.
So they're trying to steal it back before my brain can even process that I have it?
Precisely. Rangnick is quoted in a phenomenal tactical breakdown by The Guardian, saying, and I quote, "Where the ball is, we create overloads. We sprint at the opponent, close off his passing lanes, and force errors. And when we have the ball, backward or sideways passes are not our preferred option. We want to play forward."
Wow.
Yeah, it requires the team to function as a unified telepathic organism.
Because if the winger sprints at me, but the central midfielder decides to, catch his breath and doesn't push up to cover the passing lane, the whole trap is busted, right? I just pass it through the gap.
You're hitting on the exact vulnerability. If one gear in the machine stops spinning, the entire engine tears itself apart. To achieve that telepathic unity, Rangnick relies on exceptional structural continuity. He sets them up in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 formation, but it operates with a completely flat hierarchy.
Meaning everyone has to do the dirty work.
Right, and every player must inherently know the pressing triggers. These are specific cues like a heavy touch by an opponent or a pass played slightly behind a player that signal the entire team to instantly collapse on the ball.
And this is where I want to push back on Rangnick's genius a bit, based on a really interesting quote we pulled from the sources. Mircea Lucescu, the legendary Romanian coach, essentially called out this structural continuity as a fatal flaw.
Yeah, that quote stood out to me too.
He basically said, Austria have been playing with the same team for years. That can be an advantage, but also a disadvantage, because opponents now know exactly how they play. So, to put it in poker terms, if you play the exact same aggressive hand every single time you sit at the table, doesn't the rest of the table eventually figure out your tell?
This raises an important question, and it is exactly what managers across Group J are banking on. The tactical rigidity is a massive double-edged sword. To keep the team compact so that all 11 players can swarm the ball, Austria has to play a remarkably high defensive line.
Meaning their defenders are pushed way up the pitch.
Exactly. If the physical intensity of their press drops for even a fraction of a second, the opposing player suddenly has time to look up. And when they look up, they see 50 yards of empty green grass behind the Austrian defense.
Just begging to be exploited.
Yep. One accurate over-the-top pass, and it's a guaranteed one-on-one with the goalkeeper.
Which circles us all the way back to the environment, because the 2026 World Cup is in North America. It is June. Austria is scheduled to play in Dallas, Texas, and Kansas City, Missouri. I was looking at the historical climate data for Dallas in late June. You were talking about high 90s, potentially over 100 degrees with stifling humidity.
It's going to be brutal.
How on earth can a team sustain a 90-minute swarming sprint in a literal furnace?
That is the multi-million-dollar question, and it requires us to take a forensic look at the roster itself. Because to execute that kind of physical demand, you need an engine that won't overheat. But unfortunately for Austria, the pillars holding up the system are heavily worn down, and a massive crack just appeared in their foundation.
Let's start by looking at those pillars, the aging core. When you read through the squad list, the names are incredibly impressive, but the birth years are alarming. Let's start with the captain, David Alaba.
All right, so Alaba is 33 years old now. He's the undisputed heart and soul of this team. He brings the pedigree of a phenomenal career at Bayern Munich and Real Madrid with 113 caps for the national team.
Absolute legend.
He is. And while his physical pace might not be what it was at 24, his elite distribution from the back is crucial. He's the one who bypasses the opponent's press with pinpoint passes. But, and this is a big but, he has had to manage significant lingering injury concerns over the last 2 years to even make it to this tournament.
But the real alarm bell for me when looking at a high-pressing system in the Texas Heat is Marko Arnautovic. He is 37 years old.
Yeah.
He's the vice captain. He plays his club football for Red Star Belgrade now. He's an absolute giant of Austrian football. I mean, they're all-time leader in caps with 133. They're all-time leading goal scorer with 47. You absolutely need his physical hold-up play up top. But he is 37. You cannot ask a 37-year-old to be the tip of the spear in a 90-minute sprinting press in 100-degree heat.
You can't. His stamina is a glaring liability. Because Arnautovic physically cannot initiate the press with the intensity required, the heavy lifting is going to fall entirely on the midfield behind him.
So who are the guys shoveling coal into this engine?
Well, the central figure is Marcel Sabitzer from Borussia Dortmund. He's nearing his 100th cap, and he is absolutely vital. He operates as the primary engine for the press, and he also provides elite delivery on set pieces. Behind him, Rangnick utilizes a double pivot, specifically Xaver Schlager and Nicholas Seiwald, who are club teammates at RB Leipzig.
Which is practically the University of Gegenpressing.
Exactly. They are steeped in this philosophy.
For the listener, let's define double pivot really quickly. What exactly are Schlager and Seiwald doing out there?
Think of the midfield as a door, and the double pivot as the hinges. There are two defensive midfielders who sit just in front of the defense. When the attacking players swarm forward to press, the double pivot shifts side to side behind them, sweeping up any loose balls and making sure that if the press fails, the defense isn't left completely exposed.
Add the safety net.
Exactly. And Schlager and Seiwald know each other's movements blindly from playing together at the club level.
And the sources note an incredible underlying storyline for Schlager here, too. He is approaching free agency right after this tournament ends. The rumor mill has massive clubs, specifically Juventus, circling him. So he isn't just playing for national pride, he is auditioning for a life-changing contract on the biggest stage in the world.
The motivation is undeniably there. The institutional knowledge of the system is there. But the machinery just suffered what could be a fatal breakdown.
Here's where it gets really interesting. And by interesting, I mean borderline catastrophic if you are an Austria fan. I spent hours reading through the Austrian football subreddits, and the sheer panic is palpable.
Oh, sure.
Just days ago, right on the eve of flying to the United States, Austria was playing a routine warm-up friendly against Tunisia. Christoph Baumgartner, their dynamic attacking midfielder, is warming up. He suffers a severe thigh injury, the medical staff evaluate him, and he is officially ruled out of the entire World Cup.
It is a colossal, devastating blow. Baumgartner was the connective tissue of this team. He scored 8 goals in qualifying. While Sabitzer, Schlager, and Seiwald provide the grit and the pressing, Baumgartner was the lock picker.
I love that analogy. Explain that a bit more. What does a lock picker do in a pressing system?
Well, think of Austria's midfield as a battering ram. They win the ball back through sheer overwhelming force. But once they batter the door down and win the ball, they are suddenly faced with an organized defense. They need someone with the vision, the quick feet, and the creativity to actually slip a pass through the defensive lines to the strikers.
Right, someone to thread the needle.
Yes. Baumgartner was the guy making those vertical line-breaking runs. Without him, you basically just have a battering ram that doesn't know what to do once it's inside the castle.
But the part of this story that absolutely broke my brain when reading the intelligence wasn't just the injury, it was Ralf Rangnick's reaction to it.
It was definitely unorthodox.
Baumgartner goes down, his World Cup is over, the team hasn't even flown to America yet, but Rangnick actively chooses not to call up a replacement from the provisional squad. He decides to leave an empty seat on the plane and go to a brutal, exhausting tournament with the depleted 26-man roster. I mean, why would you ever decline extra reinforcements?
Because in Rangnick's mind, a player who does not implicitly, fundamentally understand the exact matrix of gegenpressing is actually more dangerous than having no player at all.
Wait, really? A talented outsider is worse than an empty squad spot?
Yes. Remember, the system is a telepathic organism. It relies on microscopic triggers. If Rangnick calls up a talented winger from the domestic league who hasn't spent 2 years learning the system, what happens?
He messes up the timing.
Exactly. That new player might see the opponent take a heavy touch, but he reacts a half-second too late. Or he approaches the defender from the wrong angle, leaving a passing lane open. Because of that one mistake by the new guy, the entire press is bypassed and the opponent has a free run at goal. Institutional knowledge is far more valuable to Rangnick than raw, uncalibrated talent.
He would rather go to war with fewer soldiers, as long as those soldiers know the exact battle plan down to the letter.
Precisely. However, that does not mean Rangnick has been sitting on his hands. In fact, if we look back just a few months, he pulled off one of the most brilliant long-term recruitment heists in recent international football history.
Right.
He didn't bring these players in to replace Baumgartner. He brought them in to fundamentally reroute the geometry of the entire team.
And this brings us to the 11th hour saviors. In March of 2026, just 3 months before the tournament kicks off, FIFA officially approved 2 massive international allegiance switches for Austria. Let's introduce these 2 young phenomenons, starting with Paul Wanner.
Paul Wanner is a 20-year-old attacking midfielder. He's currently starring for PSV Eindhoven on loan from Bayern Munich. The backstory here is just fascinating. He was born in Dornbirn, Austria, to an Austrian mother and a German father, but he grew up entirely in the German youth development system.
So he's a product of the German machine.
He is a premier product of German football. In fact, just last year in 2025, he reached the Under-21 European Championship final playing for Germany.
So Germany cultivated him, trained him, and fully expected him to be the future of their senior midfield. The sources say the German senior coach, Julian Nagelsmann, was desperately trying to lock him down. It was a massive international tug-of-war. But Wanner ultimately defies Germany and declares for Austria. Why?
It is a testament to Rangnick's unparalleled long-term vision. Rangnick saw Wanner's potential years ago. When Wanner was just 16 years old, Rangnick personally invited him to train with the senior Austrian national team as a guest.
Wow, at 16.
Yeah, he planted the seed early. Wanner gave a remarkably candid interview to Sky Sports about the agony of the decision. He said, "I have basically 2 hearts in my chest."
I want you, the listener, to just put yourself in those shoes for a second. Imagine being 20 years old, sitting in your living room, and having the national footballing federations of 2 massive rival nations, Germany and Austria, essentially in a bidding war over your soul, your identity, and your future. Psychological pressure is just staggering.
It really is. And Wanner wasn't the only one navigating that kind of geopolitical pressure cooker.
Yeah.
Enter Carney Chukwuemeka.
Right, 22 years old. He plays his club football for Borussia Dortmund. He was born in Vienna to Nigerian parents, but his family moved, and he was raised in England. He actually won the 2022 Under-19 European Championship playing for England.
He did.
But in March 2026, just like Wanner, he officially switches his international allegiance to the country of his birth, Austria. He debuts in a friendly against Ghana and immediately scores a goal in a 5-1 win.
What's truly fascinating here isn't just the sheer drama of Rangnick poaching 2 elite talents from rival European powerhouses. It's what Wanner and Chukwuemeka do to the physical and tactical profile of the Austrian team.
Okay, let's get into the geometry you mentioned earlier.
Right, so before March, if you looked at Austria's midfield, they were characterized by an immense buzzing work rate. But they had a massive glaring weakness. They lacked height. They literally did not have a starting midfielder over 5'11".
I think one of the analysts referred to them as a team of very aggressive terriers. They will bite your ankles all day, but if you throw the ball in the air, they are in trouble.
Exactly. But look at the physical stats now. Chukwuemeka is 6'2", Warner is 6'1". Suddenly, in the span of 1 week in March, Rangnick injected immense aerial threat and physical dominance right into the center of the pitch.
How does that actually change the way they play on the field, though?
Well, it gives Austria a vital plan B. When you play an exhausting pressing game, especially in the heat, there are going to be moments when the opponent successfully breaks your press and forces your team back into a deep defensive block.
Right.
Or, conversely, moments when the opponent just parks all 11 men behind the ball and your intricate short passing just isn't working. When the machine gets bogged down, you need the ability to swing across into the penalty box and win physical duels in the air.
You just need to throw it in the mixer.
Exactly. Warner and Chukwuemeka provide that exact towering presence. They aren't just filling the creative void left by Baumgartner, they're adding a dimensional geometry that Austria simply did not have during qualifying.
Okay, so the table is fully set. We have the lingering ghosts of the Wonder Team, the grueling, uncompromising tactical reality of the gegenpressing machine, the suffocating American heat, the aging legs of Arnautovic, the devastating last-minute loss of Baumgartner, and the towering, newly recruited blood of Warner and Chukwuemeka. Now, it is time to look at the immediate gauntlet staring this team in the face. Group J.
The dynamics of Group J are incredibly layered. If you look at the betting markets, you have the heavy, almost inevitable favorites in Argentina. They are currently priced at -5,000 to reach a round of 32.
-5,000. That means you have to bet $5,000 just to win 100. The odds makers consider it a mathematical certainty.
They do. Austria is slotted in as the clear second choice at -500 to qualify. But the remaining two teams, Algeria and Jordan, are not just showing up to trade jerseys. They pose very specific, highly potent tactical threats to Austria's pressing system.
Let's break this down chronologically, match by match, because this is where the tournament will actually be won or lost. Let's start with the opener. Tuesday, June 16th, in San Francisco. Austria against Jordan. Jordan is a debutante at the World Cup. They are currently ranked 63rd in the world. On paper, Austria should cruise. But what are the tactical profiles telling us?
Jordan is managed by Jamal Salami, and they know exactly who they are. They do not care about ball possession. They rely on a highly disciplined, deeply entrenched 5-4-1 defensive block.
Explain the 5-4-1 block for us. What does that actually look like on the TV screen?
It looks like a wall of humanity parked directly in front of the penalty box. 5 defenders spread across the back, with a line of 4 midfielders sitting just a few yards ahead of them. They sit very deep, absorbed wave after wave of pressure, and look to spring rapid, lightning-fast counterattacks.
Just waiting for one mistake.
Yep, and they channel almost all of their attacking play through one man. Their star right winger, Moussa Altamari, who plays his club football in France, for rent.
So Austria's entire identity is built around a high press designed to steal the ball from teams trying to pass out from the back. But Jordan doesn't want to pass out from the back. They want to sit deep and boot it long to Altamari. How does gegenpressing work against a team that refuses to hold the ball?
This is exactly where Rangnick's system has to pivot. Against a low block, it becomes less about forcing turnovers in the opponent's defensive third and more about sustained, suffocating pressure. When Austria attacks and inevitably loses the ball in the final third, the counterpress must activate instantly.
So win it back before they can even look up.
Right, win it back before Jordan's midfielders can even lift their heads to find Altamari. If Austria's double pivot, Schlager and Seiwald, stays disciplined and cuts off the passing lanes, they should completely overwhelm Jordan's midfield.
It's just a matter of breaking down the wall.
Yes. The tactical previews from Total Football Analysis project a 1-0 win for Austria. It will likely be a frustrating, grinding game of breaking down a wall, but it's an expected 3 points.
A methodical, blue-collar dismantling. But then, 6 days later, on June 22nd, the environment changes drastically. The temperature spikes in Dallas, Texas, and Austria has to face the defending world champions, Argentina.
This is the ultimate stress test for the Austrian machine. Argentina possesses the exact molecular antidote to gegenpressing, which is elite, press-resistant technical quality.
Break that down. What does press-resistant actually mean when a 200-pound Austrian midfielder is sprinting at you full speed?
It means you don't panic. When Austria's players swarm the ball, players like Enzo Fernandez, Alexis McAllister, and Lionel Messi possess the elite spatial awareness and incredibly quick footwork to simply play a triangle of one-touch passes right through the pressure.
Like a matador. You try to trap them in a corner and they instantly triangulate their way out of it.
Exactly. And if they pass their way out of the trap, They are suddenly staring at Austria's incredibly high defensive line with 50 yards of open space behind it.
Which is terrifying.
Very. And players like Julian Alvarez and Lautaro Martinez make a living darting into that exact space. And then you have to factor in Messi.
Of course.
Messi is famous for literally walking around the pitch for long stretches of the game. He scans the field, finds the exact pocket of space where the Austrian press has left a tiny gap, and just waits there.
So what's the prediction here?
The consensus prediction across all our analytical sources is a 2-1 loss for Austria in this match. They simply do not have the technical quality to trap Argentina for 90 minutes.
So what does this all mean for Rangnick's larger game management? If you are Ralf Rangnick, and you look at the data, and you privately accept that no matter how hard your team runs in 100-degree heat, Argentina's probably going to bypass your press and win, do you wave the white flag before kickoff?
What do you mean?
Do you bench your 37-year-old striker, Marko Arnautovic, to save his legs? I mean, why burn him out in a game you are mathematically expected to lose?
It is a massive, highly controversial gamble, but it might be a mathematically necessary one. Tournament management is entirely different from a one-off league match. You have to prioritize your battles. Because the stark reality is that the real danger to Austria's World Cup dreams isn't losing to Argentina. It is the team waiting for them in match 3, Algeria.
June 27th, Kansas City. This is the decider. Algeria is currently ranked 38th in the world. They bring immense attacking flair. We are talking about globally recognized players like Riyad Mahrez and Houssam Aouar.
Algeria's tactical profile is the exact opposite of Jordan's. Where Jordan is a rigid defensive bloc, Algeria has incredible, fluid, individual attacking talent, but they severely lack defensive consistency.
Okay, so where's the mismatch?
The specific threat they pose to Austria is isolated on the wings. Algeria uses wide runners to stretch the pitch horizontally.
Okay, map this out for me. Why is a wide runner a problem for Austria's setup?
Because Austria wants to keep the game incredibly narrow. When they press the ball in the center of the pitch, their fullbacks, players like Philipp Muen and Stefan Posch, push high up and pinch into the middle to help suffocate the opponent.
Even collapse on the center.
Right. But if Algeria's wingers, like Mahrez, stay incredibly wide, hugging the touchline, they create massive empty channels on the outside of the pitch. If Austria loses the ball, Algeria will instantly ping a long diagonal pass out to Mahrez in that wide empty space.
And suddenly it is a one-on-one foot race to the goal. So, listener, if you're watching this game on June 27th, do not just watch the ball. Watch the tactical chess match happening on the sidelines. Keep your eyes on Algeria's wingers trying to sneak behind Austria's high-pressing fullbacks. That single, isolated matchup on the wings is going to decide who advances to the knockout stages and who books a very quiet, depressing flight back to Vienna.
Well said. And the predictions from the experts at Fansided and FlashScore forecast a highly physical, end-to-end 1-1 draw.
And if we look at the math, if Austria beats Jordan, loses to Argentina, and manages a draw against Algeria, those 4 points should, historically speaking, be just enough to secure second place in Group J and send them through to the knockout round.
It should be, yes.
So let's pull all these threads together into the big picture. After 28 years wandering in the footballing wilderness, the nation that birthed the legendary Wonder Team is finally back. They have deliberately shed the paralyzing ghosts of their past to forge a new identity as a relentless, blue-collar pressing machine. They are walking into the blistering North American heat, heavily reliant on aging veterans like David Alaba and Marko Arnautovic. They are navigating the agonizing last-minute loss of their most creative spark in Christoph Baumgartner. But they have been reinforced by a brilliantly timed recruitment heist, bringing in towering elite young prodigies in Paul Warner and Carney Chukwuemeka to give them a completely new, terrifying physical dimension.
It is a remarkable, deeply compelling narrative arc. But I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on before the tournament starts. Let's look slightly past the group stage.
Okay, where are we looking?
If we look at the official tournament bracket, and if Austria plays exactly to the analytical predictions and finishes second in Group J, their reward in the round of 32 is massive.
You're talking about a roadblock.
A monumental roadblock. Based on the bracket structure, the runner-up of Group J will likely face the winner of Group H. And the overwhelming, undisputed favorite to win Group H is the reigning European champion and current one-in number one, Spain.
Spain, the absolute masters of possession, the architects of tiki-taka, the ultimate test of a team that wants to chase the ball.
Exactly. But consider the tactical clash here. Spain's intricate, beautiful passing game relies entirely on rhythm and dictating play on the ground. They want to lull you to sleep. What happens when a relentless, chaotic Austrian pressing machine crashes into that rhythm?
It's chaos versus control.
And more importantly, what happens when Ralf Rangnick introduces his new 6-foot-plus titans, Warner and Chukwuemeka, into the midfield against a traditionally smaller, highly technical Spanish side?
Oh, wow.
Could this newly acquired physical and aerial dominance be the exact, perfect kryptonite needed to shatter Spain's delicate system?
Could 2026 be the year that Das team finally steps out of the massive shadow of 1954? I mean, could a new wonder team, built not on waiting for miracles, but on grinding machinery, brutal pressing, and perfectly timed recruitment, actually shock the world?
The tactical table is completely set. The machine is idling at the starting line, revving the engine. Now we just have to see if the parts hold together in the heat.
It is going to be a fascinating month of football. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into Austria's World Cup campaign. Remember, the next time you're watching a match, keep looking past the ball, keep questioning the consensus, and keep looking deeper into the beautiful game. Catch you next time.